And now this story is a 60 times trip report, and the title says that I died and discovered the true meaning of life. I was in a trippy dimensional knot before peeling myself out of existence, but I didn't die. I found out that I'm merely a bump on a massive blob of consciousness that is humanity, and I could go live another lifetime anytime I want. I vibed in the circle for a bit, forgot who I was, then slowly came back to it. I broke through on Salvia for the first time in 2.5 years, and I'll do my best to explain what happened because it was earth shattering in a good way, and I want to hear if anyone here has had similar experience. I'm also going to break up the bodies of text a lot to make it easier to read. Anyways, I've smoked salvia at least a dozen times, but only broken through once before. That time was definitely worth it for the bucket list, but freaked me out a little bit and left me with more questions about the meaning of life than ever before. Ever since that time, I would only take small hints for mild effects, but for the most part, wouldn't touch the stuff for months on end. But recently, I've been entertaining the idea of mirrors and their place in their supernatural world due to the malevolent feeling that I get when I stare at myself in it for too long. Like, I'm not looking at my reflection, but the reflection is looking at me. The other day, I took some salvia and stared myself in the mirror for 30 minutes. I definitely noticed the effects of the salvia, but was aware of my surroundings the entire time. I must have been craving more on a subconscious level though, because the next night I loaded a bigger bowl. I sat down on a red leather couch in my room with the lights set to royal blue. I also set my TV to a YouTube video of trippy fractals animations so that the mild effects will be amplified. I took a decent hit of the small 60x salvia bowl and I head back and started to hold the smoke in. I remember leaning down to the right, and hadn't even had time to set the bunk down before things started changing. Despite being a blue room, the colors shift to a much more green, yellow, wheat field sort of tone. But that's the easiest of the changes I can describe. The next part is confusing because it happened in what I can only imagine to be a fourth dimensional plane, but I'll describe it in an analogy. Imagine you tie-dyeing a shirt. The first step to pinch and twist the metal until it's a bundle ready to dye. Now, imagine that, but upscaled so that you become some unknown entity and the twisted tie-dye shirt becomes the universe as I was now experiencing it. If you had heard a similar analogy for a wormhole with a piece of paper, this might help explain what I was experiencing. The center of this dimensional knot started off small and at night my core right hip, initially inconsequential, but once I noticed its significance, its magnitude grew. I could tell something was wrong, but I couldn't tell what was wrong about it. I felt as if my head was bent over and going through my thigh, as if time and space was had literally folded by half. By this point, I had of course forgotten that I'd taken salvia. I felt trapped and scared and wanted to return to normalcy, whatever that was. Frantically looking for a solution, I realized that I could grab the center of the tab, for lack of better words, that controlled this dimensional phenomenon. I quickly reached down towards my right hip, grabbed the tab, and pulled in a leftward motion over my shoulder. To my horror, I realized that this was only made things worse by actually increasing the rate at which my universe was collapsing with me at the gravitational center. I remember some force of my own mind saying, "Isn't it funny how all of your old problems pale in comparison to being stuck in the dimensional knot?" I agreed and pondered on how insignificant all of my problems in the past had been. I couldn't even remember them now. Anytime I resisted, reality only twisted more. My actions were irreversible. I could sense that the twisting was reaching its culmination and feared what was next to come. Now, quick context. At this point of the trip, I was still holding the bong, and I know in retrospect that I dropped on my duvet cover, soaking my blanket in dirty bone water. I probably saw this and thought shit to myself in real life, but it translated indifferently in terms of what I was perceiving. Now, back to the trip. As the twisting progressed, my mind began to detach from all physical things, including my body. I felt as if I were a wet towel soaked in memories, thoughts, and all of my worldly possessions, being wrung out by an unstoppable force. The last physical possession I saw leave me was the bong. As I dropped it, I started hearing obscene language and slurs from a chorus of voices as if they were the final remnants of my words being squeezed out of me. The curse words continued in a shrill tone as the visuals I was experiencing increased to a level of complexity that I couldn't possibly describe to you. With each dimensional fold, my confusion increased, and I gradually moved towards the realization that I was probably dying. After all, my universe was literally collapsing. However, I also began to sense a benevolent presence that was contributing to the chorus of curses. It felt as though someone were talking to me and cradling me through the whole process as if it was divine. It felt as each revelation of my death was made because of the things was being shown. I then heard my inner voice speak in unison with my higher consciousness guide, and I'll try my best to paraphrase. Imagine this, but with the triple fractal animations. Shit, fuck, shit, oh shit, fucking fuck. I start calming down. Okay, am I dying? The benevolent presence affirms my suspicion. Well, I guess there's nothing I can do to stop it. At least I finally know what happened. This feels familiar. In a way, it feels right, like recalling forgotten information about the mysteries of the universe. At this point, I gasped in revelation. Oh my god, this is how I wanted myself to find out. I chose this long ago. But then I started to realize that the divine presence who was guiding me and comforting me this whole time was myself. But not in the traditional sense. I was far more involved and ever powerful. More importantly, I was a loving presence that happily awaited mortal me's return from the third dimension. Then I sat in awe, perfectly crafted to reveal everything to me. Does this mean that I'll finally find out what happens next? Oh my god, I remember. And then I felt overjoyed as I began to realize I was returning home. After this revelation, the dimensional collapse progressed exponentially until I finally left this realm and returned to what I now recognize to be my true origin, the soul consciousness from which we all originate. I'll try my best to describe how this origin functions as I understood it. But some context first. 5 years ago, I asked a girl named Bella if she believed in God. She told me that she believed in all we derive from the same universal being. She believed that when you die, your soul rejoins the mass to merge with everyone else. I found it crazy at the time, but in hindsight, I realized that I saw the exact thing she described. In this new, yet entire familiar plane, I saw my entire life and identity as a raised bump inside of a massive cylinder or ring that looked like a pale blue lava flowing harmoniously amongst itself. However, it was not actually lava, but the physical form of the energy, light and consciousness of in the universe existing as one. There are other bumps in the cylinder as well, each representing a different identity or soul currently experiencing a lifetime. Once a lifetime ends, the bump subsides and the identity rejoins the soul consciousness once more. I existed briefly as a bump on the cylinder long enough to finally understand. Then I felt a sense of euphoria rush over me as I, the bump, lost all form and merged back to the ring as all bumps have done for infinity. I was actually happy to be dead. Being a part of the circulating with this energy and presence felt amazing outlet and all loving. As I thought about how human experiences are only accessible through the ring, I realized I could live a life again if I wanted, but that was all up to me. To clarify just how up to me it was, the small amount of identity I have left could decide to disperse and fully integrate back to the ring, or stay as a unit moving among the other entities who chose the same path. Additionally, I could choose go back to the earth reincarnated if so I desired, to inhabit a new vessel to experience life. And I could even live the exact same life all over again. This entity truly defied all of the time, space, and as humans understand it. I remember feeling a strong sense of belief and even laughter when I thought all about the moments wasted around worrying about my mortality when I should have known that nothing ever ceases to exist. It simply changes forms. Just as energy cannot be created or destroyed, neither can consciousness. I felt at one with the universe. I don't remember coming out of my trip too well, but I remember being back on my room and seeing the tripping fractals animations I had put before in my TV. They looked more trippy and than usual and the patterns extended past the screen. I wrote a summary of what happened in a piece of paper while I was still partially tripping. Then handwriting was frantic, large, and messy, and it read as follows. Things were peeling in a dimensional way. I heard slurs culminating to my life force ending, realized that how I was going to tell myself. It culminated to I died. It was quite comforting, not gonna lie. And I had forgotten that I was silly. I can't remember what I wanted. I remember when I was writing this being frustrated about the last sentence. That wasn't explaining how I felt during the trip, but rather the frustration I felt over forgetting something crucial. My best bet is that it was some concept that actually explains science behind everything I'm claiming. I will always wander through. I talked to my friend about everything this morning, and he suggested that, considering I don't remember the end of my trip, my soul could have chosen to live as silly for just a bit longer, suggesting that I could have been real. I'm not saying that this is the truth behind the afterlife, but considering that I was an atheist before, this is certainly is a more comforting story to tell myself. Plus, unlike those who follow more established religions, I actually saw this with my own eyes, and it all looked I was smoking a plant produced by nature by our planet. Damn, now I read the entire story for you guys. And damn, he just by smoking salvia entered in an entire another dimension. He went to the fourth dimension, as he said, and then he went to some place we would call, I don't know, heaven. We would call the purgatory. I don't know your religion, but it is a quite different and way different and way strange Salvia story. That's it for today. Give me a like, give me a subscribe, please.